And welcome into Embrace Debate, your weekly Carolina Panthers centric debate show here on the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, powered by the Fans First Sports Network. Go follow both on Twitter. On Twitter, you can follow the Keep Pounding Podcast Network at KP_FFSN. And of course, follow Fans First at FansFirst_SN. You can catch us every Thursday, 10:30 a.m. live here on YouTube, on the Tobacco Road YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. Each week joined by Cody from the Carolina Chronicles and Monty from the Four Man Rush, two well-known Panther podcast creators, content creators here in our community. What's going on, folks? How y'all doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Just making fun of Monty's terrible quarterback takes on Twitter, man. Just another day.
Hey man, we're gonna get into those QB talks here shortly, but I'm doing good, Dan, man. It's gonna be good to pack up Cody here shortly. Talk about
right, yeah. You can join us every week. Again, this is one of the more unique pods that are out in terms of combining multiple Panther content creator brands together for one thing for you guys. And normally we jump right into it. Shout out to Kieran, Panther super fan, friends with us on Facebook, checking in with us this morning. Just a lot of folks streaming in right now, getting ready. And if you don't get a chance to watch it live, you can always catch it at your lunchtime on Thursday. Just flip over to the YouTube channel. You can check it out there. Please subscribe to the Keep Pounding Podcast Network on whatever podcast platform you may listen to, Spotify, Anchor, any of those. Starting out, let's just get off with the big question here. I've seen a lot of Panther fans kind of talk about potentially trying to do this. Curious about what your thoughts are on this. The Indianapolis Colts have made running back Jonathan Taylor available for trade. Should the Panthers pursue him? Let's start off with Cody. What do you think here? Do you think the Panthers should kick the tires on Jonathan Taylor?
Man, not no, but heck no, man. Are you kidding me? I swear, Panther fans never learned their lessons, man. Overpaying running backs, bro, that's a road that leads to nowhere, man. One, not only are we going to give up future draft capital to go and get Jonathan Taylor, we already don't have a first-round pick in 2024, but you're going to give up even more draft capital to go get a running back that's been playing in the NFL for a few years now, and you're going to pay him close to $20 million a year. Like, if we were going to do that, we should have just kept Christian McCaffrey. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And listen, a lot of people hate having this discussion, but every year there are running backs that are drafted either in the late rounds or go undrafted that go on to have breakout years for whatever team drafts them or ends up signing them. As much as we hate to admit it, the running back position has been devalued just because you can get these high talent guys in later and later rounds. To me, it isn't necessary, man. And you're going to have to pay Brian Burns. And Panther fans are going to want to pay Derek Brown next year. Jeremy Chin is also coming up. So it's like there's not enough to go around. I would rather have that capital and that money available to go out and get another wide receiver next year if one becomes available in free agency. So that's a nah for me, dog.
What you think, Monty? Should the Panthers kick the tires on Jonathan Taylor? Because I saw a large contingent. But you know how it goes. Whenever a big name gets released or cut or put out for a trade, there's a large contingent of Panther fans that are just like automatically, we should go get him. We should go get him. And DeAndre Hopkins was probably the last one that was a big name that there was side for it. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this? Jonathan Taylor, should the Panthers kick the tires on this?
Well, I'm on the complete opposite side of Cody. And it's a two-part. He does. I know you're happy about that. There's a two-part answer here for me. So, do I realistically think we are going to? No. And for some reasons, what Cody highlighted, do I think that means we shouldn't? Absolutely not. I think that we should be all in for elite talent. And I got quite a few different reasons for why. To start with the devaluing of running backs here. I feel like if you don't have Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you need a stacked offense. Like, regardless how you feel about it, you need a stacked offense to compete in this year's, this league in today's time, man. So I feel like to turn your nose up to elite talent is silly in my opinion. You know, we could talk about draft picks and the value you can get with running backs here in later rounds, but realistically speaking, I'm willing to bet there's going to be no late round running back that come out this year that's going to have a better year than what Taylor is potentially to have. You know, he's a top 10, 15 player in the NFL, period. You know, it doesn't matter, regardless of position, there's not going to be a late round running back that's going to have a better year than Taylor. I'm willing to put money on that. So, I mean, that's that. So it's like, so even if you can find good value or great value at running back, you know, we're talking about finding a potentially good running back too versus a top 15 player in the NFL. It's not comparable. You know, we're not even comparing apples to apples at this point. So you have that factor. Then you factor in the contract part of it. You know, when Christian McCaffrey was the highest paid running back in the NFL, that didn't prevent us from going after Louvu. That didn't prevent us from getting Reddick. That didn't prevent us from getting Gilmore. That didn't prevent us from getting Bozeman or Corbett. So, you know, so if we're even talking about the highest paid running back at this point, that's with Christian McCaffrey being the highest paid running back in the NFL, and that's with him missing games. We still was able to add elite talent to the roster. So I don't even want to hear the argument that you can't build around your team by still paying a running back, because you can. I mean, we've literally proven that to be true. On top of the fact we're not paying Miles Sanders almost anything. You know, if you're looking at if you just do the breakdown of Miles Sanders' contract, he has an out after year 2, so you can cut him after next year. And then when you just break down his guaranteed money over 2 years, he's making about $5 million a year. Like, bro, that's pennies for a running back position and for a guy that's just came off a top 10 year. So it's like, so when you say adding elite talent, yeah, I get the argument about the devaluing of running backs, and I do understand that argument there. We're not just talking about any running back. We're talking about a top 15 player in the league. And I feel like that's kind of where that disconnect gets lost at, because again, we're talking about an elite talent, and you can never have too much elite talent on offense. But that's kind of just where I stand there.
I'm kind of in the middle because I can see both sides of it. Like in terms of, I wouldn't mind them looking for another running back. I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to be Jonathan Taylor, because I think he's going to be too expensive for what they need there. And I think some of it has to do with the fact that we haven't seen Miles Sanders. So I think a lot of the comments is coming from that we haven't seen him played all preseason. He might play Friday, from my understanding, but we hadn't seen him, so we don't know exactly what we've got from him. And unless you watched him in Philly the past 2 years, you really don't know a whole lot about him other than name and looking at stats. So I think that's pushing the narrative that people are like, well, I want someone that we've seen, that we know that's a top 10 guy. Taylor, my understanding, the Colts want a package bigger than what the 49ers gave up for McCaffrey. So for me, that's an automatic no. Like, no, absolutely not.
And the fact that Miles Sanders had almost 1,300 rushing yards last year behind a good offensive line. Another aspect to this whole equation, if you have a good offensive line that knows how to run block, I'm sorry, man, you do not have to have a top tier running back talent to make that offense run. And I said this to Monty on Twitter, with the good old line in front of both of them, what is the real difference in what you're expecting Jonathan Taylor to do versus Miles Sanders?
A huge difference, bro. It's a huge difference.
What? With what? They're both good pass catchers. Miles Sanders can go between the tackles. He can bounce it to the outside. What is Jonathan Taylor able to do,
bro,
that Miles Sanders is not in this offense?
When you to answer that question, when you compare both running backs, when they both had the best offensive line in the league, bro, you talk about barely almost getting 1,300 yards. Taylor ran for 1,800 yards and had like 900 receiving yards. They're not comparable, bro.
It was all of their offense. It was all of their offense. No wide receivers.
But they still had other good weapons on that offense. And again, if you mentioned offensive line, so if we're talking about best offensive line compared to best offensive line, Jonathan Taylor was a mile better than Miles Sanders. And again, I don't think Miles Sanders is a bad running back, but we're not comparing apples to apples here. We're talking about an all-pro running back versus a guy that just had his best year behind the best offensive line in the league. It's not comparable, bro. Like, again, we're talking about one of the best players in the league to a guy that's not even ranked top 15 at his own position. It's not comparable. I mean, that's why you get the pay difference. That's why you get the production difference. I don't think that Miles Sanders, and I hate when we get into the argument of what can this guy do better than the other guy, because that's, again, we had the same argument when talking about Matt Corral versus Bryce Young. And realistically speaking, it's a mild difference between the two. And it's just the same with, Matt Corral and Bryce Young. There's the talent difference is about which is why one is an all-pro running back, one isn't, which is why one went number 1 overall, which one the other was a third-round quarterback. And I feel like that's the reality of it. The NFL tells y'all how they feel about these players all the time. Miles Sanders didn't even get an invite to the little running back meeting. So they tell y'all there, Miles Sanders isn't the guy that y'all think he is, even if he is a good running back. And I feel like that's where, again, we're having that disconnect, because Taylor is a stud, bro, and Miles Sanders is a good player, but they're not comparable, bro. They're just not.
See, I do wonder, though, and that's good stuff there, but I do wonder if Jonathan Taylor is a product of the Colts offensive line and not the other way around, which means whoever ends up with Jonathan Taylor is not going to get the Jonathan Taylor that was in Indianapolis, because he's not bringing the offensive line with him.
But can you not say the same for Miles Sanders?
Maybe. I don't know.
But that's my point in and of itself. If you have an offensive line that's doing its job, the difference between Jonathan Taylor and Miles Sanders is not as big as you think it is, man. Especially if you have wide receivers that are going to be doing their job. Like, we're not going to have Jonathan Taylor here and become a crutch to our offense that we have to run him so many different times a game, just like we did Christian McCaffrey. We're doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
I don't think, again, even with Christian, bro, it wasn't a crutch when we were using, again, Christian McCaffrey is just the best offensive player on our team.
It was, though. That's
bro,
but
again, I'll ask that a question. So was it a crutch with San Francisco? Because he goes to San Francisco and is still the best offensive weapon on that team, and they filter that offense through Christian McCaffrey.
But they had more weapons. They had more weapons to choose from. They had Deebo Samuel. They had
Samuel.
They had different teams.
But I think that was more of a product of, we had who was our offensive coordinator compared to San Francisco, though? Who was our coach compared to San Francisco?
That's true. Like true.
If we're going to talk about the system, let's talk about the system. We had Christian McCaffrey in a terrible system with almost no weapons compared to him going to a system that fit him. And then we don't know if Miles Sanders fits this system. We just pray it does. But if we're even talking about system, I'm taking the better player if we're going by system, because again, Taylor has proven to be the better player if we're talking about a run-first offense, and that's what they both were in. Miles Sanders was in the run-first offense. Taylor's in the run-first offense, and Taylor was a much better player.
It still comes down to me. It still comes down to that offensive line. Like, it's different when, like, you see somebody like Barry Sanders racking up 1,800 yards and his line was trash. That literally he was doing it on his own, as opposed to Taylor doing it with the Colts, where the Colts always have a good offensive line. So I don't know. It's just, I don't think he's worth the amount of money he's going to be looking for. Plus, he was injured. He was injured a lot past couple of years too. So you got to take that into account. You can use us as an example. Like last year, we made Deontay Foreman probably look way better than he actually is as a player, because he was running behind a disciplined offensive line that was dedicated to running the rock like 40 times a game. Like, you knew you were going to get lathered up. So like, he kind of he benefited from it.
But do y'all think this offensive line is as good as Philly's? Or do y'all think our offensive line is as good as Philly's?
I think it can be. I don't know if it's not currently right now the way it's constructed, and we'll get to that in just a second. But from what we saw last year and knowing who's coaching them and James Campion, I think they have the potential to be that for sure for what's on the line. But they need to get the complete line together. Corbett has to be back. We'll talk about Icky here in just a second. The potential is there. I'd say the potential is there. Say like in 2 years from now, would I call the Panthers offensive line a top 3 unit in the league? I think that potentially is possible. I don't know if it'll happen, because again, we haven't really seen any of the scheme for the Panthers yet. Like, I think people are overreacting in terms of expecting them to score and all this stuff in the preseason. And Frank Wright has been clear as day in terms of what his intentions are. He could give a damn about preseason, like for real. Like, he don't care. Room reps. That's all they're trying to do. They're not trying to get out without injury. They don't care about the score. They don't care if they won it, lost it, whatever. He can say all that just to appease the fans, but you can tell from his comments that that's not the objective here. That's not their goal. They did not want to show Atlanta or New Orleans anything offensively, defensively, and that's why these games look the way they do, is because they're just not showing anything, and they're not going to show anything even on Friday. So for all the Panther fans there's a lot of y'all in the comment section right now, for y'all expecting them to come out and score 30 points in preseason week 3, that's not going to happen. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but that's not going to happen. They're not going to explode for something like that. Let's move real quick over to question number 2 for the day. Should Panther fans be concerned about Icky at left tackle heading into the regular season? I've seen 2 different sides to this. There are some concerns. There's some people that are very concerned. And there are others that are just like, they kind of nitpick 3 plays out of 2 games to make Icky look bad. There's others on the line that have done similar things. Monty, I'll let you start off with this one. Should we be concerned about Icky going into year 2 at left tackle?
Yeah, I think this is a great segment to pivot from our last segment, because to answer your question, I don't think Icky we should be concerned. I think if we're going to, like you said, we're not going to be concerned about preseason. I think that's what preseason is for, to definitely work out these kinks here. The mistakes that he has made, I believe, are definitely fixable, and I feel like the upside that he has at offensive tackle, it trumps kind of the mistakes that we've seen so far in preseasons. So I'm not really concerned there, but to the point, and I know Cody is concerned about Icky at offensive tackle. If that's the argument we're having, and especially if you're strong about wanting to move Icky from offensive tackle to guard, how is it that you're so strong? How is it that you're that confident about this offensive line? Then that's my question to Cody, because again, it's no way you can in the same breath say, oh well, I think Icky is is going to be a problem at offensive tackle, we should move him to guard, and he's arguably our best offensive tackle that we have outside. Or on the left side. It's no way that you say, well, let's move him into guard, but then I'm still confident that his offensive line can produce enough for Miles Sanders to have the year that y'all, or mimic the year that he had last year. I don't think that makes sense, because again, you're wanting us to move an offensive tackle or make a complete position change before the season starts, and then in the same breath saying, well, I think this offensive line still could be a top 10 or top tier offensive line in the league. I don't get that. I don't understand that.
Before I move over to Cody, real quick, I just wanted to double check it before I popped it up here. I've got some breaking news. Isaiah Simmons is being traded from the Cardinals to the New York Giants for a 7th round pick in 20.
I'm so upset, man.
That is
so upset, dude. We could have done the same thing, bro.
Former 1st round pick.
What the hell we do, man? What are you talking about? Bro, for a 7th round pick. But we could have had this dude. That would have been so much better.
Cardinals were playing.
What position does he
play?
Okay,
but this is what I'm saying. Okay, Hassan Reddick was in Arizona for 3 years, and nobody thought anything of this man because they were playing him out of position. Why couldn't something similar happen to Isaiah Simmons, man? That guy is a freak athlete. You can put him at free safety, or you can put him at linebacker, man. Let him flow sideline to sideline. The fact of the matter is they gave up a 7th round pick. Bro, we couldn't do that. That's wild to me, man.
We already have him. His name's Jeremy Chin, right? We already have him.
But they're gonna be in the defensive backfield. I'm talking about playing him as a linebacker.
I don't know. I mean, that just is like one of those things where like the Giants were sniffing around and Carr's like, yeah, you can have him.
I won't die on this hill, man. I'm a Clemson fan. So I don't
there it is.
Yeah, man. I still do think he'll be. I think he'll be a better player than what he's seen with the Cardinals so far, man.
So give me go ahead real quick, buddy.
I would just say I think comparing them to Reddick isn't fair, because Reddick still had that breakout year, his last year in Arizona before they traded him, or before he left Arizona as well. So I feel like we've never saw that breakout year with Isaiah Simmons, and he's played multiple positions. They've tried him at different positions. He just hasn't panned out. So I don't think. I think we have multiple guys that can fit the role. If we're going to be honest, Brandon Smith can fit the role of Isaiah Simmons for whoever what he wants. Yeah, man, it sucks though.
Cody, your thoughts here? Should we be us Panther Nation? Should we be concerned about Ike Ekwonu at left tackle, or are we just kind of nitpicking a couple of preseason games where I know one of them was miscommunication? Skylar Callahan was telling us on Believe in Panthers earlier in the week that one of them. Icky said he thought he had heard a certain verbiage or word. It was actually something else, which caused the miscommunication. They've changed all that language, which makes sense. So some of it's just kind of like, you want this to happen now. You want it to happen in the preseason. That's what it's for. Like, you want them to figure this stuff out now, not week 1 on the road to Atlanta. So your thoughts here. Are you concerned about Icky at left tackle, or just blowing more than it should be?
So listen, I want to preface my comments by saying I want to see Ike Ekwonu during the season at left tackle before I completely jump the ship on him. But what I am saying is there is a lot of revisionist history when talking about Ike Ekwonu. Because going back to that draft year, if you remember, the debate was between Ike Ekwonu and Charles Cross. Ike was the better run-blocking, more dominant at the line offensive lineman, and Charles Cross, coming from Mississippi State, was in that air raid offense. He was the pass protecting offensive tackle. We knew that as a player, Ike Ekwonu would have to grow in his pass sets and in pass protection in order for him to be that dominant left tackle that we all want him to be. What I'm saying is, if Ike Ekwonu continues to struggle the way we have seen him struggle, and that's undeniable, man. 2 games in a row, we have seen Ike beaten on speed rushes against players that he should have been able to lock down. But if we continue to see these problems, the answer is already on the roster, man. Brady Christensen, Matt Rule knew before the start of the year last year that Ike Ekwonu was going to be the left tackle and Brady Christensen was going to be the left guard. There was no real competition between those two, just like there was never a competition between Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. They knew what they were going to do. Brady Christensen never did anything to lose that left tackle position, and people feel like it's some kind of an insult when you say move Ike to left guard, like guard is some devalued position compared to left tackle. In today's NFL, your center and your 2 guards create the pocket for your quarterback to be able to work from, step up into, and distribute the football. And if you have a dominant left guard to be able to run behind, that is invaluable to your offense. So to me, it's, when everyone talks about Brady Christensen, they say, oh, well, put him as a swing tackle. Well, that's a nice way to say he can just be riding the bench instead. Everyone wants Zavala at left guard. And in my opinion, until Brady loses one of those positions, he is one of the most dependable offensive linemen on the team right now. And his play style is better suited to play tackle than guard. And almost everyone agrees with that assessment. That's why they want him to play that swing tackle role. So if he continues to struggle, swap those 2 players all day.
Okay, I got a couple questions. So has Ekwonu played left guard before?
No.
Yes, yes, he did.
Where did he play?
He played snaps at left guard at NC State.
State? Okay, so
not as many as left tackle, but he did play that position.
Majority snaps, exactly. I was going to say we're at left tackle though.
So his comfort, his position, his natural position is left tackle. But we're saying that if we need to salvage him, your thought is to push him inside the left guard and switch him with
his strength at the point of attack on the line is by far his biggest asset. And I feel like you're playing to his strengths if you're putting him at guard compared to left tackle. And when you do look at his reps at left guard at NC State, he was dominant, absolutely dominant.
My other part was, and Dan kind of echoes it here, Icky would feel downgraded getting switched out. It would make him feel better. Cody, you were mentioning that there's not much of a difference between left tackle and left guard. That I'll push back on. To me, the left tackle is the second most important position on the entire team. And we've got people like Lawrence Taylor to think for that. That's why the left tackle gets paid so much money, because they're protecting the quarterback. They're the number 1 asset. Usually the best defensive end is going up against that left tackle. So on that aspect, he has to get better. This is a top 10 pick. This is someone where I can't just abandon him after 1 year and kick him to the inside and just say, experiment didn't work. I've got probably the best offensive lineman coach in the league here, James Campion. If he can't get it right with him, then he's not going to be a left tackle. It just is what it is. But I think the Panthers brass will understand that before we do. So I don't know if I'd kick him to the inside. I do know that Brady Christensen was the highest rated left tackle on PFF the year he came out. I also know that Matt Rule never really gave him a chance at left tackle and never saw him as that because his arms were too short or whatever nonsense that that Rule was using as an
excuse. Which is overcomable.
Yeah, it just didn't make any sense. A lot of stuff he said didn't make any sense. But I think Icky will be fine. Some of it too, I'm curious because we ran the ball so much the last half of the year last year.
Right.
If it covered up some warts in his game, because if I'm not mistaken, he was the highest rated rookie lineman on PFF at the end of the year.
Right. But again, that goes to my point though. Run blocking, that's where Icky excels. Pass protection, we knew going back to his NC State days that's where he would need to continue to grow and improve. My last point, then I'll let Monty go, we'll move on or whatever. But we were just talking about Jonathan Taylor. Well, Jonathan Taylor had all of those yards for the Colts because they had a dominant left guard in the form of Quentin Nelson, who, by the way, was picked even higher than Icky was. So, I understand that the left tackle is the most glorified position of the offensive line. They're normally going up against the best defensive ends. But in today's NFL, which is so pass happy. In my opinion, I think that the pocket is more dictated by your center and your guards, thereby making that position even more important. That's all I'm saying.
So before we get to question number 3 for the day, and shout out to everybody that's coming in to check us out right before you go to your lunch breaks at work, or if you're just kicking it at home and you stumbled across this, we really appreciate the support, not just for Embrace Debate, but the entire Keep Pounding Podcast Network. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter at KP Pounding_FFSN, and on Twitter at Tobacco Radio. Multiple shows, including this one, The Cat Cave, Inside the Vault. They've had interviews with David Newton and Will Kunkel and a lot of different big name beat writers and stuff for the Panthers. So definitely go and check that out. A lot of Panther content there, especially as the season starts to build and we get closer to that September start date. So definitely go over there to get as much Panther content as you can, and follow Fans First Sports Network on Twitter at fansfirst_SN. Here with Cody and Monty here on Embrace Debate. The main question I wanted to ask you guys today: who's the team to beat in the NFC in your eyes right now? Not just the NFC South, the entire NFC, because all I see is that the NFC is trash, the AFC is crazy good. And I feel like it's going to be one of those years where there's going to be a couple of teams in the NFC that pop up that no one's been talking about. They're going to be 10, 11 game winners. And we look back at the end of the year and be like, oh, how come we didn't see that this team was going to be this good? Who do you think can be the team to beat in the NFC in your eyes? Cody, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so there's really only 2 teams, and it's pretty much whoever goes first. Like me and Monty are going to pick between. But yeah, I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Not only did they make the Super Bowl last year, but they have every position that you could want. They have the dominant quarterback. Jalen Hurts is looking incredible. They have the defensive ends. They had the incredible draft class. They already have the all-pro players. And now, by the way, we're talking about Jonathan Taylor. They're probably the leaders in the clubhouse to trade for Jonathan Taylor. So they're one of those teams right now that's just ridiculously loaded in the type of players and the talent that they have. I think their general manager, Howie Roseman, is probably the best general manager in the NFL. I think he's like the benchmark for what you want your GM to be. And partly the reason I picked them is just because the quarterback too. Like, yeah, you can compare them with the 49ers, but Philly has the quarterback that you're more able to depend on. And I have some Sam Darnold opinions, but that's a different show. And that's a different topic.
Boy got named the backup quarterback yesterday for looking at, and he put that deal together himself pretty much. He chose to go to San Francisco, so he glowed up. He he did his thing. Monty, your thoughts here? Who's the team to beat in the NFC in your mind right now?
Yeah, well, Cody took my answer entirely, so I'm kind of upset. But yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go San Francisco, if not Philly. I think San Francisco, all they need is a quarterback. And Cody, you better not get on this on here and talk about Sam Darnold.
Bro, don't make me, bro. Don't make me, bro. Don't make me, bro.
But no, I think San Francisco is probably the second most complete team, if not the most complete team in in the NFC. Again, like I said, they only need a quarterback. They have arguably the best defense in the NFC. The best running back in the NFC, have arguably, they have, when you look at the offense completely, they have the second best tight end in the league. They have, probably a top 12 receiver in the league, the best running back in the league there. So, offensively, they are they are stacked as well. And that's why I was going back to my point earlier. If you don't have a Patrick Mahomes or you don't have a Tom Brady and, he's not in the league anymore. So if you don't have one of those 2 quarterbacks, you got to have one of these kind of type teams, to compete realistically. You got to have a stacked team to compete. So those probably would be the top 2, in my opinion. San Francisco is loaded. If they mess around and get a quarterback, or if Purdy comes out and produces again, they can definitely compete again with Philly. And I feel like they were a quarterback away from going to a Super Bowl themselves. So yeah, it probably would be for San Francisco as my second pick.
I probably should have worded the question differently, because I probably should have put who will be the surprise teams in the NFL, because Philly and 49ers have kind of been the talk all off season in terms of the NFL. 2 names come to mind. One, Minnesota, and I didn't think about it until I watched that quarterback documentary on Netflix that had Kirk Cousins and Pat Mahomes. I forgot Minnesota was like 13-4 last year. They were really good. And Kirk Cousins played really well last year. It's just they got in the playoffs and couldn't do anything. And then they let Dalvin Cook go, but I think that was more of a cap casualty more than anything else. I'm curious about them because he missed some games last year and they still were winning games. And that division's weaker with Aaron Rodgers gone. So Minnesota, I know people are high on Detroit right now. And Dallas. Like Dallas is still sitting there. I feel like Dallas they will go as far as Dak Prescott takes them in terms of turnovers. Like Dak Prescott likes to throw it to the other secondary for some reason the past couple of years. Really, ever since he came back from that injury, he's just been turnover prone. And if he can control that under double digits, I think the Cowboys can win the NFC East. Like even with the Eagles there, like someone is going to have the Super Bowl hangover. Is one of the two teams, either the Eagles or the Chiefs. I'm not betting it's going to be the Chiefs. I'm betting it's probably going to be the Eagles. Like there's going to be some things we see in Jalen Hurts' game, like holes that teams have had a whole offseason to kind of figure out and exploit. And they lost some players too. The Eagles lost a lot of players in free agency. We've got one of them in Miles Sanders. So they're not exactly the same team, but everyone's kind of picking them. 49ers pretty much returned the same roster. And now they're gonna have quarterbacks because they didn't have quarterbacks in the playoffs, and that was ultimately their downfall. But Dallas and Minnesota, I'm kind of looking at them like, and Seattle.
I was actually going to say Seattle.
We need to talk about Seattle because Seattle is rebuilding what they had when Pete first got there. That kind of USC vibe, that young, hungry, long-armed, like the secondary is real big. They're gonna run the ball. They've got wide receivers right now. Like Seattle, no one's talking about Seattle in that NFC West. And I feel like they could be the ones that actually rise up to challenge San Francisco. Anybody's thoughts on Seattle?
Well, no, Seattle was actually going to be my pick. I was going to say, if we're going to say sleeper teams, I think, again, like I said, nobody's talking about Seattle right now. Geno had a great year. And if Geno can have another great year with the pieces they added, because they had a great draft as well. They added, a lot of good pieces on the offensive side. So, if they can, or Geno can have another great year, Seattle's going to be a sneaky good team. And we talked about bumping heads with San Francisco. Like, that's always a good game between them in that division. So, yeah, Seattle definitely would be my pick. My pick if we're going about sneaky quarterback or a sneaky team.
Yeah, if we're going sneaky teams, I'm going to say the Giants, man. Like the Giants made it to the playoffs last year. Say what you want about Daniel Jones. You really need a quarterback that's good enough. And I feel like last year they proved that he's good enough. They have Dexter Lawrence, who I believe is a top 2 defensive tackle in the NFL. He gave Bradley Bozeman fits last Friday when we played. I know that they have Saquon Barkley coming back on a 1-year deal. They drafted Jalen Hyatt, the wide receiver out of Tennessee, who I really liked a lot. Tall, runs a 4.3. Like they have the talent to be able to do something. So I think they could be a kind of a surprise team. I mean, they were in the playoffs, so it's not necessarily a surprise, but I feel like they could really make some waves, man.
So, yeah, and I think that's going to be the fun part of the NFC because we could be a surprise team, depending on how some things go. And no one's picking the Panthers to win, 11 wins, 12 wins or whatever. But the way the division is and the coaching staff, I mean, it's floating out. The schedule's easy or not easy. It's easier than some of the other schedules that some of these other teams have because we had a second place, third place schedule that we're playing right now. So we'll keep an eye on that. Bonus question here before I get you guys out of here for the morning. Bigger injury for the Panthers right now, wide receiver DJ Chark or running back Chubba Hubbard? Both kind of carry pros and cons with both. Cody, have you had to choose from the two right now going into the third week of preseason and the regular season week 1 season opener on the road? Which one is a bigger injury in your mind, Chark or Hubbard?
I mean, I'm probably one of Chubba Hubbard's biggest defenders. Most people don't have too many good things to say about Chubba, but I feel like me and Monty are going to have the same answer as DJ Chark, and it's not even close, man. I mean, DJ Chark, just from what we were seeing in training camp, he was looking like the number 1 wide receiver on our team. Like, people really sleep on how fast and tall and what kind of a catch radius DJ Chark has, and he has been really producing in our offense, before the season has started. So, yeah, to me, that is a lot bigger, and that's compounded by the fact that Terrace Marshall Jr. is also hurt right now.
That's right.
So, yeah, when you combine those things, to me, the answer is DJ Chark and by a mile.
Monty, Chark or Hubbard? Which one's a bigger injury concern for you going into week 3 of the preseason and week 1 season opener?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think he'd be playing, preseason anyway. I feel like after the second game, especially, I feel like him not playing preseason is perfect, to give him that time to heal. But yeah, I definitely, especially with it being a hamstring, I'm definitely probably a lot more concerned with Chark than I am Chubba. Cody's right. I'm not one of those guys that have a lot of great things to say about Chubba, so I don't particularly think that he would be as big a loss on the offensive side of the ball. I think Blackshear honestly can carry the load at running back too. But yeah, man, losing Chark and like Cody said, losing TMJ at the same time, that kind of will hurt. But I'll say that to say we're really going to see a lot of Mingo, going to week 1, and that's probably a good thing there. We're really going to see a lot of Mingo. We're really going to see a lot of Adam Thielen, a lot of Hurst, so I feel like that's good. That it kind of can be a blessing in disguise, because we're going to get a lot of reps with the rookie there. But yeah, man, losing Chark is definitely going to hurt. Like Cody said, you don't really realize how fast he is and how big he is until you see him on the field, and he flat out runs past people, and I feel like we're gonna miss that in the offense. But we're gonna have to see what Bryce is made of this in week 1 if they're not ready to go. So
yeah, for real. Dan Floyd says, "Where's our speed at wide receiver now?" I guess Shaw Smith. Yeah, he becomes the over the top guy until they get Chark back. I kind of see it as a potential blessing for both in terms of position wise, the depth behind it. And one of the things I've been seeing is that people are complaining about the depth issue with the Panthers because they're seeing the second and third string kind of get whooped on Friday nights. With Chark, yeah, it's going to give guys like a Shaw Smith a chance to kind of maybe secure a position that they maybe wouldn't have been able to secure before. With Chubba, he has I think it's a high ankle sprain, if I'm not mistaken. So he might be out for multiple weeks. Blackshear has an opportunity to kind of cement his position on his team with this opportunity. It'll be right at the beginning of the year. So I think that Frank Wright's offense is very run heavy. I think that's going to be the surprise that Panther fans aren't going to be ready for week 1. We're going to run the ball a lot, and they're going to use multiple backs. So Hubbard's going to, when he comes back, Hubbard's going to get some touches. Blackshear's going to get some touches. Sanders feels like a 20 to 25 touch type guy. So they're going to run the ball, and they're going to help Bryce in that aspect. They're not going to ask Bryce to go out and throw it 40 times to win a football game unless they have to. Like, that's the vibe I'm getting. They're not going to dump it all on Bryce. They know he can take it all, but they're not going to do that week 1. I feel like they're going to really attack Atlanta, their interior of their defense, and run the football. So Blackshear's got a huge opportunity coming up here. Chark, it sounds like from what Frank Wright was saying in his press conference the other day, that he didn't seem all that worried about it. It's more of a precautionary, keeping him out. They don't want to, like you said, Monty, with hamstrings, kind of want to rest it early. You don't want to keep playing on it and make it worse because that can linger the whole season. So I'm fine with them not playing him. I didn't want them to play any starters game 3, but I understand why. I understand why they're doing it.
I didn't
play him.
Go ahead, Monty.
No, I was just saying I was shocked that they were going to play him. That was the shocking thing.
Well, I've been saying on multiple podcasts that when they took preseason game 4 away, that this preseason game 3 was now preseason game 4, and that's wrong. It's actually the reverse. Like, this game 3 is actually what game 3 used to be. Like, when the starters would play the whole first half, and like they're treating it like a dress rehearsal. I thought that they would do that in game 2, but they didn't. And they really treat game 3 in preseason still as that game where they want those starters to play. And the part where the light came on for me was when I realized the Jets were starting Aaron Rodgers in game 3 of the preseason. He hadn't played a preseason game in like 4 years, something like that. And he's going to play in this game this upcoming weekend for the Jets. That's what told me. And then Wright's comments about playing his starters, at least the offense, they're taking game 3 more seriously than they did the couple of weeks. Now, that doesn't mean Frank Wright cares about the preseason. Remember, I told y'all earlier, he does not give a damn about preseason, like, at all. Like, this is just for him to get reps and stuff in. But we might see some wrinkles we hadn't seen before, and I do expect his offense to be out there. He said about the same amount of time, but I could see them playing the whole first half, to be honest.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. If I was the coach, and this might be unpopular, I would never play my starters in preseason. I would use game 1, 2, and 3 as an opportunity for all my depth pieces to get battle tested and let them actually compete for a job on the Carolina Panthers. You might say, oh, you want them to be prepared for week 1. You don't want them to be rusty. I would rather them be a little bit rusty earlier in the season than injured by the time we get to week 5 and 6, especially seeing that we're already dealing with injuries, man. Like, to me, it just isn't worth it. I would never play my starters in the preseason.
I was actually surprised they got this far with the limited amount of injuries they've had. Usually it feels like the Panthers kind of start stocking up on injuries from preseason week 1 onward, and we kind of got through unscathed for the most part of this preseason. There's not really any major injuries that have happened so far. So we'll keep an eye on that. Panthers taking on the kneecap biting Detroit Lions Friday night, 8:00 on the Panthers Radio Network and the Panthers Television Network. You can watch that locally if you're here in the Carolinas. Anything else before we get out of here, guys?
I mean, Monty has trash quarterback takes. That's it, you know.
Hey, I love you to death, Cody, but Justin Herbert is overrated, bro.
Stop. Go back to bed, bro.
Hey, he gotta win a playoff game or something. Like beat Pat Mahomes once. Something.
Exactly. Until we call this man the top 3 quarterback and not have a playoff win, bro, I'm not having it, dog.
Did Herbert take the Lamar Jackson like spot where people were trying to call him overrated till he won MVP? And
yeah, like
he's right there.
It's the 3 quarterbacks that we're talking about that he's potentially better or that he's going to be in the argument of is either Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen, and he's not better than either one of those. So
I think Allen might be a little overrated because Josh Allen is Cam Newton 2.0. Like he really is.
There's no way. To me, it's no way you think Justin Herbert isn't overrated, but then think Josh Allen is overrated. You know, Josh Allen is into 2 AFC championships back, consecutively. Like
what I'm saying is if you poll general managers right now, both Josh Allen and Justin Herbert are in their top 3 or 4 picks of quarterbacks that they would choose right now. I know this is off topic, but man, the reason why they went and got Kellen Moore, bro, Herbert's average depth of target last season was at the bottom of the NFL. All that arm talent that he has, his offensive coordinator didn't know how to use him. Wait, get back at me after this year, and let's have this Herbert discussion, and we'll see who ends up being right, bro.
Okay,
I'm telling you.
Al the Sailor says Josh Allen is the white Cam Newton, but he ain't got the drip. He doesn't dress like Cam. That's the main.
Nah, he sure don't.
You don't have
percentage. Yeah, they're about to say about 59%. Like they're pretty strong arms, almost like a fire hose. Like I see they run. I get all that, but
Josh Allen might have the better completion percentage because he also has Stephon Diggs.
Yeah,
which is something that Cam Newton never had.
First couple years he had Steve Smith.
Well, he had Steve for 2 years, but I'm saying the back half of his career, bro, it was Cam Newton having to make magic.
Yeah, and Josh Allen might have that here soon because apparently Stephon Diggs and him are not getting along. So we'll keep an eye on that too because we get close to the season as the Bills get closer to the end of their proverbial Super Bowl window. We're going to get out of here. We should be back next Thursday live, 10:30 a.m. here on the Keep Pounding Podcast Network, powered by the Fans First Sports Network. Again, make sure you pound that like button for us. Subscribe to the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel. I believe it was close to going over 900 subscribers when I looked at it yesterday. So definitely go hit that so you can get content and alerts for not just this, but other shows that are on that network. Believe in Carolina Panthers, myself, Jonathan Stewart, Skylar Callahan from Sports Illustrated, live sports talk here from North Carolina. On everything from ACC, basketball, football, to WWE, like literally a bunch of stuff here that you can check out on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to that. For Monty and Cody, this is Des. We'll be back next Thursday with a brand new edition of Embrace Debate. Keep pounding.